Joined by Adam Marsden, an RFU Level 2 coach within the Yorkshire region, coaching the junior section at Barnsley, as well as Leeds Trinity University men's and women's team.
Yeah.
Adam, firstly tell us what inspired you to get into coaching rugby.
I think a lot of it was the coaches I had growing up. They always made it really enjoyable, really fun. So I felt like if I could give that feeling towards kids that are coming through now, they're more likely to stay and develop the club as a whole. You know, get more kids interested, which makes a stronger first team in end. Because if you have a strong group of kids that really enjoy playing rugby, they're more likely to stay together and move up through the age grades together until they get to senior rugby. And once they're playing senior rugby, if they're enjoying playing with who they're playing with, they will stay.
On that topic, how would you increase participation figures in the game, or what do you think on the state of participation at the minute?
I know the biggest dropout range for the RFU and rugby union is between 16 and 24, which that's when a lot of players start to play senior rugby and they realise they're not the biggest, not the hardest, and so drop out of the game because they can't just run over people anymore, which is a shame because you get some big players that are good ball handlers, but because they can't run over people, they're just not interested anymore. Which I think a lot of that is people just need to realise that the game isn't just about running over people, it's about actually moving the ball around.
In the area that you live within Yorkshire, how much of a threat do you see rugby league as, and do you ever see that, you know, does it almost disappoint you that many good players could go on to play rugby union but have settled on league instead? How frustrating is that? It
is very frustrating. Like, for example, I coached under 17s at Barnsley, and one of my players has just signed on for a rugby league team because we've only just sorted out them being able to play senior rugby. So he's thought it's not going to happen, so he's gone and signed on for a rugby league team, which he's one of my more influential players, we'll call him. So he's like a figurehead in the team, and they've heard that he's not going to play rugby union next year because he's signed on for this rugby league team. So when it takes away your good players like that, it is really frustrating. Also, the rugby league trainings tends to start before the rugby union season's finished. So I have a couple of players that play both, and they start to disappear towards end of year. So it's rather frustrating.
We would say that league's perhaps a bit of a simpler game.
Yeah, without a doubt.
The complications of union can't be easy to coach. What do you find perhaps the most difficult aspect of the game to coach? Is it the technicalities of the scrum or at the breakdown?
The most complicated part for me to teach is probably the breakdown, because you have to, because I work with kids of all ages. I work from under 17s, I have under 9s on Sunday morning sometimes, you know, I coach under 7s sometimes. You know, so when you're talking to proper kids, under 10-year-olds, it's very hard for them to understand that this is an offside line, or that you can only come through the gate, as we call it, and there's only certain things. If you're off your feet, you can't play with ball. You know, so there's a lot of complications when you're trying to coach that.
As a kind of a coach of juniors, you almost have a duty of care to protect the players.
Yeah.
I know when I played as junior, my mum was petrified. What advice would you have to any parent who perhaps wasn't going to let their son play the game due to kind of the dangers of it?
I would say that you have got to accept that when your child is playing any sport, there is a risk of injury. You know, I'm not going to deny that there is. But along with that, you have experienced coaches taking part and making sure that your child is doing everything safely. The referees, their highest priority is player welfare. So when they're playing games, they're just going to look at making sure everybody's safe. Even right through to senior level, if it's not safe, the referee won't allow it. Like this weekend, my game was cancelled because the pitch was too hard. The referee took one look at it and said, no, we're not playing today because you can't get a stud in there. So everything about rugby union is geared towards player safety, right down to the concussion checks that are now in place. You know, if you even think somebody's had a concussion, to come off the field and have a check.
Does that fall more on the referee or on you as a coach?
Well,
or as a doctor on the touchline, do you think?
Because I'm head coach of the section at rugby club, and it comes down to me at the end of the day. You know, referee can say, yeah, he's not coming back on, or yeah, he needs to have a check, but at the end of the day, it's my decision if he comes off. If I see him wobbling about on pitch, I'm going to know he needs to come off. I don't care if he's my best player or my worst player. If he's wobbling about on pitch, he's coming off.
On the topic of kind of player safety, we saw a high tackle restriction implemented by the RFU. It's always been an experiment. I believe they've gone against that now. They've kind of cancelled the trial.
Well, yeah, because over the past few years, the tackle height has got lower and lower. So to start with, anything below the neck was fine. And then it was if there was an arm over the shoulder, it was a high tackle. If there was contact with the head, it was a yellow card. And then it was moving down again to below the armpits. And they wanted to move it down to below the nipple height, which...
Is it going too far, getting too extreme?
I think it's going a bit far because you get these big lads that are like 6'7", yeah, for example. So the big lads. And then you get the little scrum halves that are about 5'6", and it is very hard for them to dip low enough to make a successful tackle around the waist because there's just such a height difference. Whereas an over-the-shoulder tackle for me, as long as nobody touches anybody's head or it's not excessively dangerous, is fine. But I understand where they're coming from because in the past few years there have been an increasing numbers of concussions. Just look at how many George North has had, and he slight knocked to head and he's out these days. So it does have a lasting effect on people, which is why they implement these rules. So I understand it, but it is very frustrating when you're trying to coach.
I see. And now on to the women's game. You've been involved in coaching that. How have you found, obviously, since you were a young boy, the development in the women's game? Have you noticed an increase in participation? Did the World Cup been held in England, the Women's World Cup, and of course the Men's World Cup, help that, do you think?
I do. So when I was a junior at Barnsley, in the under-13s I played with, because you could play mixed teams at that age, you still can, and we played with some women, and then as the years went on they got more and more, and in the end they developed a strong enough women's section so they could run a women's team. Now that team now has progressed and is now in the second tier of English rugby, so they're playing the Championship, which to go from maybe 6-7 years ago to playing with the lads to now is a fantastic achievement for them. So I do believe that the women's game is getting stronger and that there are more women partaking in the sport. Well, just look at Trinity here. They went up last year, didn't they? So they went up a league, which is fantastic.
Finally, for yourself, very good of you to join us. Your sort of own coaching player career.
Yeah.
Do you have a particular direction you want to go with that?
I would like to play rugby for as long as I physically can. I love the sport. Since I was 8 years old, I've enjoyed running around on a field, getting trod on by refs, and generally just running around with my mates. That's why most people play rugby, because they enjoy the people they play with. There are the odd few that do it to run around and into people, but for the most part, they do it for the mates and the people stood across from them on that field. It's fantastic. But coaching-wise, it would be nice to have a full-time job in coaching, not just a volunteer role. But
I imagine there's opportunities for that. Of course.
There are. I get emails all the time asking if anybody is able to be a head coach of certain sections or stuff like that. But it just clashes with my university at the minute, which I can't physically travel to Mansfield or wherever they are.
Yeah. Well, Adam, thank you very much.
It's all right. I've enjoyed it.
Insightful.